All right, so here we are on Southern Sports Gumbo again, and we talked at the beginning of the season that we would do some high school football talk, and so we want to jump into a little bit of that tonight. I want to touch on a couple of things from a Georgia high school perspective, just kind of an overview of kind of where we're at with Georgia high school football. You've got some teams that have stepped out and established themselves. A couple of them traditional teams that are always good. You have the defending champion in Grayson, who's off to a really good start, 4-0 with wins over Thompson out of Alabama, and they destroyed Collins Hill in week one. Tyler Atkinson, best linebacker in the country, in my opinion, leads their defense, and they're very good on defense. And then Tyler was a quarterback he is a quarterback that's committed to North Carolina, and that was really leading the team and playing well. And he got hurt in that Thompson game, which ended up holding on and winning in overtime. At that point, they're a top 5 in the nation team right now. At that point, I really thought Grayson was just heads and tails above everybody else in the state. But with Burgess getting hurt, I think that brings some teams back into it. Teams like Buford, who's always really good defensively. I think if they played Grayson, it would be a low-scoring battle, and you never know who's going to win in a situation like that. Buford this week plays Douglas County. It's a home game. Buford has the new nice $62 million stadium that everybody in the nation's heard about, but Buford's got some really good players too. They have the younger Rayola, a kid that's committed to Nebraska, and also a safety that's committed to Georgia. They're hosting Douglas County, and Douglas County was undefeated and lost a tough game against a top 10 team from Fairburn, Langston Hughes, last week. And so they're still capable. And Douglas County has 2 wide receivers that are committed to Power Four schools. Devin Carter, who's going to Florida State. Aaron Gregory is going to Texas A&M. So you're going to have over 20 major college prospects in that game with Buford and Douglas County this Friday. So good game there if anybody just wants to be interested streaming a college or streaming a high school football game and looking at it and finding it. And then to me, the game of the week in Georgia this week, though, is Gainesville and Carrollton. You've got over 30 players that are being recruited for college football teams in these 2 teams. Gainesville has been dominant early. They played Moody early, team that's highly ranked out of the state of Alabama, and really dominated that game. Gainesville's got Kareem Hughley, Xavier Griffin, Jamarian Matthews. Griffin and Matthews are committed to Alabama. Hughley is committed to Clemson. Again, they've just been very good. And this game is at Gainesville this week. And then Carrollton has Ryan Mosley, who's committed to Georgia. Dorian Barney's committed to Michigan. Other players, but those are 2 headliners. And then they've got a freshman quarterback, CJ Seifert, who is following in Julian Lewis's footsteps. He's already got SEC offers as a freshman. So really good game there between those 2 teams. And you also got two high profile coaches, Gainesville, Josh Niblett, who came over from Hoover and won state championships in Alabama. And you have Joey, people in Carrollton call him Coach Joey, and that's what he's known as. He coached Trevor Lawrence when he was at Cartersville, and then obviously Julian Lewis, and has been in 2 state championships since he's been at Carrollton in the last 3 years. So really dynamic matchup there that should be good to watch this Friday. So that's kind of where we're at with some high school football in the state of Georgia. Daniel, what do you think? I know you followed some teams in the state of Alabama, and then Louisiana's got a big game this week.
Yeah, definitely. One thing before we move on to Alabama, I watched Hughley his first game against Moody this year, and I know he's a dual threat guy, but I was blown away with his passing ability in that week 1 game. He had some really big explosive plays in the passing games. I am really high on him. I think he's somewhere around number 15 to 20 in the rankings in quarterback. I think Clemson's kind of getting a still in this guy.
I agree with you. Just his dual threat ability alone, he is a really good passer, but his dual threat ability alone, he's a top 10 quarterback in the country. Georgia was trying to get in and recruit the kid, but just like many Clemson kids, once you commit there, Dabo seems to wrap those guys up, and they enjoy him. So he just stayed stuck to Clemson when Georgia tried to pursue him.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll head a little bit west now over to the Birmingham area and talk Moody Blue Devil football. They're 2-1. Their one loss was to Gainesville out of Georgia, and they play St. Clair County. St. Clair's 2-0. St. Clair County did beat Montgomery Catholic this past week, and that is who beat Moody in the state title game last year. Fun game for Moody at home. The Massey ratings projection is Moody 42-13. So, they're very high on the Blue Devils, and so am I this week. I'll highlight two guys on their defense. Brock Willis, who last year had 26 tackles for loss, off to a pretty good start through 3 games with 6 tackles for loss, and 7 quarterback hurries through these 3 games. He's an outside linebacker in the class of 27, so he's only a junior. And then one guy I want to talk about too on their defensive line is Cam Mallory. He's like a 6'2", 100-pound defensive lineman. I think he's sitting at 4 tackles for loss through 3 games and 3 quarterback hurries with 23 total tackles. He is a West Virginia commit right now. So having those two guys on their defense, Mallory in the class of 26 and Brock Willis in the class of 27, that defense is just as good as anybody in the state of Alabama. So that's a game I'll be tuning into tomorrow night. But I think Moody's going to win pretty big and really get their passing game going a little more this week. And then we go over to Louisiana, where you've got Edna Carr and American Heritage playing in the Superdome. This may be the game of the week nationally when it comes to football. Edna Carr, great program. You've got Richard Anderson and Aiden Hall, defensive lineman and safety, both committed to LSU on the Edna Carr side. Hayward Howard, committed to Texas. And then you go over to American Heritage, and you've got the quarterback Bell, number 4 national player in the class of 26, committed to Texas. You've got Amari Nugent, 4-star corner. Brandon Bennett, 4-star wide receiver, committed to Florida State. This is going to be a really good game. You'll probably have, if I had to guess, you'll have 20,000 in the Superdome for this game. So going to be a really, really big game for both teams. American Heritage does have, Bell at quarterback, but I think I'm going to roll with my local Edna Carr boys this week. They've got some really good pieces on defense. So it's going to be a great game for scouts to be at. And if you want to see some really competitive high school football, it's a really good one to tune into.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. Heritage has got a lot of tradition. They're always good, got a lot of good players. And that Carr team is loaded. Henderson's going to he'll be great to watch in this game. So, and that's a game that's going to be on TV. Great game to watch on Friday night from a high school football standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. And there were about a dozen other players in the top 1,500 in this year's class that I didn't even touch on in that game. So you got 17, 18 players with D1 offers over the next 2 classes, playing for American Heritage and Edna Carr. Going to be a really good week of high school football, really good week of college football. To kind of wrap up the episode today, we're going to have a little fun with it and do a fantasy draft of tailgate food. So Kevin and I are going to go 6 rounds, snake draft. So he'll lead us off with pick 1, and then I'll take pick 2 and 3.
So pick 1. I mean, obviously there's a team that LSU is playing this weekend. Nobody tailgates like LSU, especially even from a food standpoint. So pick 1 is obviously going to be Gators. So Gator meat for your tailgate this weekend.
I like that. That's a good pick. Gator was I was going to try and sneak them in as my second pick. So for my first pick, I'm going to go a little basic and go with jambalaya.
Jambalaya is always good. So a favorite of mine, this is later in the season, November, end of October, is a good gumbo from a tailgate standpoint. So I would have to throw that one in there.
I'm gonna say no potato salad in that gumbo, though.
Absolutely not. So potato salad is for the Oxford and the Grove, where they don't really cook their food. They just bring it all in and it's like going to the grocery store and just buying it. The Grove is a fun atmosphere, but if you really want true tailgating where you cook the food and it's good, that's not where you go. So they'll eat the potato salad and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I agree with you.
So with my second pick, fourth overall pick, our tailgate at LSU every week, the guy who runs our tailgate catches fresh fish before every game. So I'm gonna go with some fried fish, and I'm gonna narrow it down even more and say speckled trout. A little fried speckled trout is kind of a game day tradition for us.
And you can't beat that. Again, that is South Louisiana. He probably cooks a few things in with that trout too. That probably some sausage that he throws in there too, and boils that in there and stuff. The typical. I think that's just a staple. You mentioned potato salad. We could talk about drafting some kind of sausage that you cook, but again, that's just a staple. That's just a given. So 3 for me. Our guys they do a good job with the tailgate too, and they always in early November they always go deer hunting, and then next year we usually take advantage of that, and they'll bring it to one tailgate, and so I'm going to say that Saturday that they're cooking deer meat, and that's the main thing on that Saturday. So number 3 with me would be that deer meat special Saturday.
Okay, cool. I like it. I was gonna go with some backstrap for my pick, so we're gonna count
Sliding
that
in.
as deer meat. So I will go with my third pick. We're gonna change it up and go with a dessert. Gotta have a little cookie cake on game days.
You do. You do. So for me, I like the cookie cakes and things like that for dessert, but when it comes to tailgate, I like meat for a tailgate. And so number 4 for me would be it's a shrimp pastelaya dish that's really good. And we do that usually one Saturday too. So again, you gotta eat some shrimp at some point in your tailgate if you're an LSU fan, and so let me throw that one in there forward.
A little shrimp pastelaya. I know we kind of marked off sausage, but I am gonna have to throw boudin in for my next
All right.
pick.
And that counts. That's not a sausage. Again, that is a Southern LSU Baton Rouge thing. And you gotta from that boudin standpoint, there is some tailgates that you're cooking some different things and you're bringing some variety, whether it be boudin or, bacon wrapped, whatever. That's just South Louisiana. Sometimes you don't know what meat it is, but it's always good. So you got to count that in there, and that kind of finds that feels that boudin a thing too. So to me, also too, again, this is more winterish, well, fall because it never gets totally winter in Baton Rouge. But a cheese dip where you got rotel and you cook bacon and you throw that in there and sausage in there and you cut up jalapenos and you throw that in there too. And it's a really good dish. It's kind of like a cheese heart attack though. You only want to eat it one Saturday because it's not the healthiest thing for you, but that would be my pick 5, where you've got rotel with a little bit of chili, sausage, bacon, jalapenos. It goes well.
It's my fifth pick. I am gonna go with when we play those 11 a.m. games rarely. There's nothing better than having a nice sausage biscuit at about 7:15 on game day out at the tailgate.
When you first pull up, I agree with
Yeah.
you on that. Just in cooking it now, and again, you can also go early. You don't just have to eat the patty sausage early. You can also go early with some sausage, with some link sausage for breakfast too in South
Yeah.
Louisiana, and that always is good early for that breakfast. So my sixth one is going to be one that everybody's going to be like, "Oh, that's kind of a wimpy pick," but I've mentioned a lot of meat. I love meat at a tailgate. To me, that's what it's all about. It's a good meat. But to balance that, you got to have a large vegetable tray, in my opinion, to kind of get a little bit of health in there, and not just kill your blood pressure with just meat, cheese, and all those things that come with a tailgate in South Louisiana. So give me a good vegetable tray from a good grocery store like Rouse's or something like that to tie in with it, and maybe along with that vegetable tray, like we talked about, some jalapenos wrapped in bacon and cream cheese. And again, that jalapeno will serve as a form of a vegetable too, wrapped in bacon and cream cheese.
So I'm going to wrap up the last pick of our draft with a little bit of New York strip cut up. That's going to be my last pick tonight.
You're going fancy there. That
Yeah, you know,
fancy.
we get some New York strip. Guy who runs our tailgate is really entertaining every week, whether it's Louisiana Tech or Alabama here at LSU. He does it up the same regardless of what game it is. Now maybe he's cooking a little bit more of everything for like an Alabama game, but he crushes it week in and week out.
So does he wear a chef hat and everything? Sounds like if he's cooking steak, this sounds like this is a true chef.
Doesn't do the chef hat, but he and his team that cooks, they do wear aprons.
So they're out there and ready to go. Apron's got a towel on.
Yeah, they're ready to go and man, cook up great food week in and week out.
By chance, are they from South Louisiana? Got a little Cajun accent along there with it too.
Oh yeah, they're Lafayette, home of Thibodeau.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
Yeah.
So those guys can cook. There's no question
Oh yeah.
about it. They can cook with anybody. I've always said, if you're ever in a situation, get a true Cajun where you need survival and good and food to survive. You get a true Cajun, they can make anything taste good. You don't even have to know what it is. Those are the guys you want on your side.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're the best. So pretty fun little tailgate food draft. We'll be doing like one of these every week or every other week with different sports topics. A little fantasy draft on the show for everybody. So to kind of wrap us up, great week ahead of us and tune into our show live sometime after the LSU game Saturday night and we'll recap all the good games that happened throughout the day. You know, a lot of good ones. You got Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, Vandy. You got LSU, Florida, and you've got Texas A&M and Notre Dame. And I'm sure I'm leaving somebody off the list here.
It's going to be some great games, and we can even talk about the tailgate food a little bit as we recap the games from this Saturday. It's going to be a great week of football. Always is. But yes, hop on after the games. Look for us. Like, comment, subscribe, do all those things.
Yeah. Well, that's it for Southern Sports Gumbo today. We'll talk to you guys soon.